So we'll have you all grab a seat and get ready for this panel discussion that we're about to have. Thank you all for staying and making this such a great day in STEM so far. Of course, we have so much more to give before you all leave. But before we get there, it's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce the moderator for our counselor panel discussion. This is our panel that has formulated beside me magically. And Rob Denson, president of Des Moines Area Community College, co-chairs the STEM Council's working group on counselor engagement alongside University of Northern Iowa President Bill Rood. President Denson has faithfully served on the executive committee of the STEM Council since its launch in 2011, and if there should ever be a Hall of Fame for Iowa STEMers, Rob will be an early inductee. He led the team that conceptualized our regional STEM network of managers, hubs, and regional boards. He was instrumental in crafting our calls for proposals for hubs, for scale-up programs, and for IT Academy. His attendance record at executive committee meetings is nearly perfect, and his contributions always significant. His campus pioneered a student STEM certificate in partnership with Drake University, and he keeps Iowa on the forefront nationally as chair of the STEM Higher Education Council for STEM Connector. Somehow, amidst all that Rob does, he manages to find the time to manage the largest school in Iowa, college in Iowa. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming DMACC President Rob Denson.
Thank you, Angel, and it's great to be here and involved in such an important topic, an important project. And again, I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and Mary Ann Dringa and everybody who's been on this great team. On the counselor panel today, we have Mike Danielson, Gilbert Community Schools, Meredith Doman, Des Moines Public Schools, Dave Ford, Southeast Polk Community Schools, Sue Shermer, Heartland Area AEA, and Ryan Williamson, Des Moines Public Schools. When I turn to the question period, they'll quickly introduce themselves, what their position is, and where they work. But overall today, we're here to answer that age-old question. How many counselors does it take to turn on a student in STEM? Of course, the answer is one, and the rest of them just stand around and ask, and how do you feel about that? Well, we're going to solve the problem today. There are 1,157 counselors in Iowa schools for 362 school districts, 1,512 elementary, middle, and high school buildings, 481,226 students. The latest data I could find show that in Iowa, the ratio of counselors to students is 1 to 429. You know, the only time I heard 429 was a good number was when I saw my first Ford Mustang in 1969. 429 places us 26th in the nation. The national average is 1 to 471. Whoopee. So at 429, we beat the national average by 42, but the U.S. Virgin Islands is 182, Wyoming is 200, Vermont and New Hampshire are 235 and 236 respectively. The national recommended average ratio is 1 to 250, 179 students below where Iowa is today. But the real bad news is that Missouri is at 352 and beats us by 77. Now that's hard to take. Nebraska at 368 beats us by 61. Well, the American School Counselors Association says school counselors are positioned to ignite interest in STEM. The Iowa School Counselor Association says that its mission is to advance the academic, career, and emotional social development of all students through excellence in professional school counseling. So let's find out how Iowa can do better. Let's start at this end with Dave. Introduce yourself, title, and school. And what most excites you about what's going on with STEM in Iowa right now? What gives you hope? Parentheses, this is your time to suck up to the Lieutenant Governor.
All right, excellent. Thank you. My name is Dave Ford. I am the At-Risk and Counseling Coordinator for Southeast Polk Schools. We have 18 counselors in our district serving almost 7,000 students. And I think if I were to answer the question, what excites me about the future of school counseling in STEM, is that counselors are positioned to really spark an interest in something that has a meaningful long-term impact on students. And it's not just about their development, but also the economic development of the state and the country, because that's where the future workforce opportunities lie. And they're in a really good position as a profession to help students explore those opportunities.
My name's Meredith Doman, and I'm the Student Support Coordinator for Des Moines Public Schools. And in that role, I work with our school counseling program, where we have one designated coordinator for that program that serves all of our K-12 buildings with about 67 school counselors for roughly 35,000 students. I think what excites me right now, I should add too, part of my role is with the counselors. I also coordinate other related college and career readiness programming and academic pathways for students, as well as social emotional supports. And what excites me is seeing all of those things come together, especially in the academic realm, with a lot of some of the examples even this morning in classrooms of combining classes and experiences and competency-based pathways for students, being able to help engage them to see meaning in their work. And watching from a student perspective and my experience with kids in schools, seeing that light bulb go on that happens through those engaging experiences, and being able to help connect them with opportunities and help them to find success in ways that are related to interests or things they never thought were possible, especially in the area of STEM, and connecting that back on a day-to-day basis.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Williamson, counselor at Roosevelt High School here in Des Moines. I can really do some good sucking up a little bit later. Think about your favorite song, and I'll try to sing it for you here in a little bit. But no, seriously, one thing that I am hopeful as a counselor going into the STEM area is just the continued collaboration that we are having with different colleges and universities throughout the state. I know we're doing some work with DMAC and inviting some of those representatives into our building. I serve on a couple of different admissions advisory boards throughout the state, University of Northern Iowa. I've served on another committee at Grandview, Buena Vista, and University of Iowa, and every time I'm on those campuses, they do a very good job of talking to us about different STEM opportunities and inviting us to bring our students to the campus so that way we can really do a good job of introducing them to this wonderful world of STEM that is continuing to grow throughout the state and throughout the country. So I would say one of the things that I'm most proud of is our continued collaboration.
Good afternoon. I'm Sue Shermer. I work at Heartland Area Education Agency, where amongst many other duties, I also support the work of school counselors and at-risk programs. And I guess the one thing, it's hard to limit it to one, Rob, but
Next.
one thing that I'm really excited about is seeing that light bulb come on in kids' eyes, because STEM careers, I think back, to when I graduated from high school a couple years ago, and what we had available then for STEM and in that area is so very different from what it is today. And keeping kids, keeping teachers, keeping administrators and counselors up to date on what the opportunities are is just, it's wide open, and it's an exciting adventure, and I'm really glad to be a part of it.
I'm Mike Danielson. I'm a middle school guidance counselor for Gilbert, and I feel a little out of my league up here with all of these people being a middle school counselor. But I think the thing that excites me the most about STEM is as school counselors work to redesign our role in school, STEM has really given us an opportunity and resources, and there's an initiative for us to really work with students and classes and teachers in a way that's different than we have before, and it's really allowed us to help make them, career and college ready.
Okay, the next question, do you think our Iowa school counselors are prepared and up to the task of turning our students onto STEM? Meredith, let me start with you.
Put me on the spot first. Do I think that Iowa school counselors are prepared for supporting getting students
She's a
connected
good counselor.
with
She always rephrases
making
my
sure I
question
understand
so it gets
exactly
to
what
the
you
answer
want.
she wants to give. So, Meredith, what do you think?
Oh, I'm glad you're asking me what I think. Yes, I do think counselors are, with our primary focus looking developmentally with kids, K-12, career, academic, and social emotional. And it is so hard in a K-12 environment to isolate those things and to just say, here's the career development of a student, or here's the social emotional development of a student. They all flow together so well. So I think, yes, counselors are in a great position to do that. We also are used to using programming, connecting families, connecting community, and utilizing all of those assets to better serve our students. And so we have a framework to do that, and the work we do daily would support that.
So, Dave, are you academically prepared? Are you prepared? Not you personally, but
Am I
counselors.
academically prepared? Yeah, we won't go there. Yeah, I think when I look at, I've had some background in training counseling programs in New York and in California and in Iowa, and one of the things that I found that's common across those domains is that the career training in particular, and the career and post-secondary transition training, has been something that's been kind of off the cuff to some degree, but the career development piece, the career counseling and the training that goes along with that is something that's been universal. I remember, and none of you would probably enjoy reading 300 or 400 page textbooks on career development theory. I don't know that counseling students enjoy that necessarily, but it's definitely an opportunity for people to explore and see what goes into the thinking behind developing one's career path throughout. We look at elementary and we've got career awareness that turns into exploration and then actually putting those components all together as students leave our PK-12 system. And counselors have that training, and that's the one thing that I think is really critical in the conversation is that they are well trained and they are well positioned to be able to take that theory, put it into practice, and getting the opportunities that are available for students in front of students through counselors is the next step, I think, in the journey to be prepared.
Okay, Mike, who do you think really is responsible to be the captain of the ship to lead the STEM development interest as far as students in each of the schools? Who do you look to, if not yourself?
Well, counselors are uniquely positioned in the school. So we are a resource that's often not utilized probably the most efficiently or effectively, but we're someone who can partner with a teacher. For example, I'm working with my science teachers to be that career resource for them. So if they do a unit on weather, let's say, then I would help find some career information, maybe some programs of study at the college level, and give them that information. So I'd work as a resource with the teacher. So, counselors are part of that. I don't know that we captain the ship, but I think we're definitely part of that.
So that raises a good question. Ryan, how could counselors be used more efficiently or effectively?
I'm going to say we captain the ship.
Yeah.
I will say it. I will say it. We're beyond being politically correct up here. Okay, that was my little suck up. Tell me, ask me your question again.
Go back to the beginning. It's why are you the captain of the ship?
I think first off would be education, our training. I think it was already mentioned with our training in career theory, career development. I would say our flexibility within the buildings to support all areas in STEM. At my building, we're doing our collaboration with our science-bound students with Iowa State, and teachers reach out to us, and we come in and we do presentations on different career opportunities that are out there for students in our science-bound program. I would say our willingness to learn, and if we don't have that answer, we have the time to go out and do the research, where a lot of our teachers will not have that time. So we will support our academics, support our students and our instructors as well. So I think flexibility is going to be huge.
Sue, you want to weigh in?
I do. You kind of knew that, didn't you? I see counselors as a linchpin there to kind of connect all those pieces, whether it be community, business, and industry, families, teachers, students. The counselor is the one person who's uniquely positioned in the building to be able to access all those folks and bring them together. Not to say that others cannot, but the counselor has the education, the background, the training, the ability to work that all around, and hopefully has some insight into the students' abilities and skills that maybe some of the other folks don't see, because they see the whole child rather than just a little piece of the child. And so I think that the counselor really is the captain of the ship, or could be the captain of the ship. Of course, I'm going to rain on that parade now a little bit and say, when you are a counselor with 800-900 students in your caseload, how do you be the captain of each one of those ships? It's just physically impossible.
Meredith or Dave, you want to weigh in on the ineffective or inefficient use of counselors? How could you be better tasked for the job?
You know, I think one of the things that is different, you walk into any high school, primarily throughout the country, and you look at an Algebra 1 teacher, and you ask a principal, what do they do during the day? And you're going to get a pretty universal response. And if you go into one of the hundreds of thousands of high schools or middle schools around the country and ask their principals, what does your counselor do? You're probably going to get just as many responses as you have questions. And streamlining the role and having a healthier understanding of what not only counselors are trained to do, but how to utilize them effectively. One of the things that I mention a lot is that our counselors oftentimes have 60 graduate credit hours that they need to be licensed. That's a lot of credit hours to be standing on bus duty or doing lunch duty. You know, they are well trained to do high-level work with students, and we need to make sure that they're given the time in their professional roles to do those things.
Yes, ditto. Yeah, I'll just ditto that one and save you some time.
Are all schools in Iowa equal as far as the opportunities students have to access counselors and the kind of support that counselors can give?
I can address that one. No, there's a broad disparity of access to counselors across the state, even within districts. And I'll also say even within districts, for example, in Des Moines schools, just our high school ratios alone range from approximately 1 to 600 to 1 to 1,000. The majority of ours are closer at 1 to 600. But with those ratios, our collaboration skills become key. So when we're talking about being counselor or captain of the ship, I've definitely, but there's a lot of collaboration that then has to happen. We have to provide resources to our teachers and help pull those in so that they can have the conversations daily with kids. I would love to say every counselor would have the time to devote to one-on-one with students every year. But when we have such broad ranges, not just in our district, but also across the state.
Mike?
I think one of the challenges is the role of school counselor is changing. And part of it is that there are this is my 11th year, and it's changed in the last 11 years. And so there are school counselors who are stuck in the old way of doing things, but there are also counselors who are forced to do the old way of doing things because they have to cover the lunch duty or the bus duty or the recess duty. And so it's hard for us to redesign ourselves if we're not allowed the opportunity to do that. You know, I have a lunch duty, and it's just someone needs to cover it. The principal has one, and so I have one. And unfortunately, all the different duties, responsibilities, tasks that I have in a day, it's hard to do justice to these kinds of things that we're talking about when I'm tied down to those other things as well. You know, someone with a paraeducator or an associate could cover that duty just as well as I could with a master's degree.
I will speak to that briefly also. I'm speaking as someone that has completed an administrative licensure program here in the state, so I'm trained to be a high school administrator. At no point in time during my training did I ever receive any type of education on the effective use of a counselor. And I think that universal language, if it's going out to administrators, the best practice that you could use to your counselor, I think that would do a tremendous, it would impact our profession tremendously, because administrators universally are speaking the same language on what's the best practice or what's the most effective use of a counselor's time.
Could you talk about what your administration does that best supports you in your work? What's one of the things that your superintendent or principal does, other than sharing bus duty, that does with you, that helps you best do your work?
I can answer that first. While I mentioned our high school ratios, especially right now, are, I would say, very large ratios, our district leadership especially has stated that we're growing that counseling program. We've added positions last year, even a few more this year, looking at next year. A lot of it becomes the decisions that we're making about the money that we have available, and that as they understand the role of the counselor in terms of especially college and career readiness, and addressing our social and emotional needs, that understanding that vision that a counseling program and where we're going with this new direction of counseling that's been around for a while, it seems like, but is still referred to as the new direction. When they're bought into that and supporting that and making decisions around that, it's central to fulfilling our mission as a district. And so having that buy-in and support allows us to then look at day-to-day decisions at the building level, but it's also helping to have every principal at every building level and every administrator making decisions about staffing and use of time, understanding that role and creating that space for counselors to do that work with kids. But it does happen at all facets. It's crucial.
I think one of the key things that I would highlight is that even though the caseload of 500 may be underneath the counselor's purview, one of the things that I feel that our leadership does well is recognizes that there are individuals within that big, broad caseload category. So they provide the autonomy for them to be able to run the program that they feel is best for their building, but also acknowledging that there are individual students who have very high needs. And some of those needs may be for the student who's a junior who is gung-ho for going to the most selective institution in the country, and that student has a very different need than a student who may not have the same place to go home to every day. And those needs, from our perspective, may be very different, but for each one of those students, that's a very important need for them in the immediate and long-term sense. So I think from us anyway, our perspective would be that the knowledge or just the awareness that flexibility for their role is really critical and letting them be professionals to make those decisions.
Ryan, what is Mike, we can start with you.
I was just going to say that my principal in my building is very supportive of the things that I want to do. So if it's ideas like we did an alma mater Monday one day where every teacher wore a sweatshirt with their college, and they took time out of class to talk about where they went to school and something like that. And he was very supportive of it. He wore his shirt. He went into some classes and talked about where he went to school. If I want to take kids to Iowa State for a college visit, we're very close to Ames, and he's very supportive of that. He'll help me line up the transportation, and he's always very supportive of the things I want to do. I think that's because we have a trust between the two of us, that he understands that I'm not just shooting from the hip. There's a purpose for what I'm doing, and it is good for kids, and it's good for their future. So he's very supportive. There's just the restraints that he has in terms of staffing and using his staff efficiently. Unfortunately, I'm someone that can be plugged in somewhere else like a lunch duty, just because I'm already on staff, and it's easy to assign me there.
Sue, do you want to comment on what you've seen? Or
I've seen the gamut. Superintendents, administrators who are unbelievably supportive, who understand the role of school counselors. But I think, they're very busy as well, and they need to really educate themselves on what is the appropriate role of the school counselor. We have the American School Counselor Association national model that's very clear on how much time should be spent in direct service to students and what that looks like, what that means. I'm not saying that counselors can't do lunchroom duty. I'm saying that during lunchtime, a counselor should be out there looking to see, who's sitting by themselves, who's throwing away their food, who's doing whatever. But at the same time, if they're there on duty, they have a very different perspective of what's going on in that lunchroom. And so I think it's really important that administrators and parents and everybody, other teachers in the building, be educated on what the appropriate role of a school counselor is, and then advocating for appropriate ratios.
I will talk to lunch duty. I'm going to sing too. In my 30 years as a counselor, that was supposed to be a joke, but because I don't want to date myself, I have never eaten lunch in a teacher's lounge. And the reason being is because I am the busiest over that lunch hour. We want students in the classroom. Okay, students are there to learn, and we know that. We do not want to take away from instructional time. So their time, that 45 minutes that they have, that is theirs, I have to make sure I am available. So I will eat lunch in my office. When I get a lunch, I will eat lunch in my office so that way I am accessible to students.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question. So if you've got a question, we'll have some roving mics. But I want to ask a final question of each of the panelists. Okay, as you sit here today, could you state the one thing that you believe our Lieutenant Governor and this STEM Council should do to move the needle in helping counselors get more STEM-interested students? Meredith has been selected
Okay.
to start this
Scary.
round.
To start, the first thing that comes to my mind is to remember that counselors' content area, if you will, is academic, career, and social emotional development for students. So as we're looking at things that impact students in that way, connecting to those plans, supporting them, any conversations connected to that, to please engage us and involve us. We really actively want to help support our students in those areas and can lend a different perspective at times to any of those conversations. Thank you.
And in that regard, each one of these, Jeff, has been added to our counselor subcommittee. So, all right. Dave?
Thank you. You know, I would probably just say ditto, but I don't want to take the opportunity to throw out an idea and just say ditto. So I think one of the things that would be most helpful to practicing counselors is some sort of, not that we want to create more work for anyone, but some sort of a statewide network that would be able to provide real-time workforce needs to counselors and say, and this is the pathway to help students get there. You know, in my role, I as a district level person, I know the percentages, I know what the future looks like, I know the numbers, but I don't know the details. I don't know which job or jobs are available for our current 7th graders, and what do we need to do to be able to position them to move in that direction in 10 years when they're out in the workforce. And getting some of those specific things that we've talked about, a lot of jobs in the STEM field, we don't even know what they are yet for our high school students, you know, and how do we train their minds to be adaptable enough to be able to pursue those whenever they are available. But there are some jobs that are coming out that we just don't know what they need, you know, what pathway. Helping parents understand, getting past this myth. If there's one thing that I could do in my job at Southeast Polk is to dispel the myth that a 4-year degree or a graduate degree has more inherent value than a 1-year or a 2-year vocational training or a 2-year degree. Thank you. I'll let you clap. Go ahead. If I get applause on my comment to the Lieutenant Governor, that's a win for me. So I think that would be the one legacy that I would leave behind there, is because there are a lot of excellent career opportunities and long-term pathways for students in those areas.
And let me just give a quick plug for Southeast Polk. I've been in this business a number of years, and 2 months ago, Dave and his team was the first K-12 that ever came to us and knew as much about how their students had done after they left the K-12 as when they're in the school. And their question was appropriate. Once we talked about numbers, the question was, how can we as Southeast Polk do a better job here so that our students are more successful when they get to you? And we get more students out of Southeast Polk than any other college or university in the state, you know, plug. But they want to make sure they do well, and so do we. So we've exchanged some very interesting data, and we're learning a lot more about how our students did in both places and how they'll do better as a result. So, Dave, I want to thank you and your
Thank
team.
you.
Okay. Ryan, what would you like to tell the Lieutenant Governor and the STEM Council as to how this enterprise can do a better job of helping counselors do their job with regard to STEM?
I'm a big movie guy. I like to sit now when I'm not writing or playing with children. I like to watch old movies. And one of my top 5 movies of all times, and don't tell anybody I told you this, is Aladdin. Okay? Everyone seen the movie Aladdin? I see this young lady over there raising her hand. Okay, there's a part in there in Aladdin where he said, phenomenal cosmic power. Individual living space. Okay? In a lot of ways, that's how I feel as a counselor. Okay, we have a tremendous amount of power with our students, when working with our students and introducing them to STEM fields, and not only STEM fields, but just helping them navigate through life, period. I think what I would like to leave with you is, one, continue our collaboration. Two, work with colleges, universities, master's programs, and provide some training, provide some professional development to help our administrators understand what we can do and what we are trained to do. And get away from some of those tasks that are necessary in our buildings. And we're team players. We understand that. We are team players. However, are we being utilized as effectively as possible?
Sue?
Wow, I've got a lot of things. But one of them, obviously you've heard us mention that ratios are important. And whatever we can do to get those ratios a bit more in alignment would be helpful, not only at the building level, but there are 4 AEAs in the state that have designated support for school counselors and that actually do something. Some of our other AEAs don't have the manpower to do that. And so ratios at the building level, but also at the AEA level as well. But one of the other things, you know, it's a problem in education that every person you come in contact with has experience in your job. And I can't count the number of times people have said to me, oh, a school counselor, oh, you should hear about my school counselor. And I hear all these horror stories, which I understand school counseling wasn't the same a number of years ago. I mean, I had one experience with my school counselor, and I still chose it as a profession. But I think re-educating everyone we come in contact with about what is it the school counselor does. They don't just sit in their office and play, I used to say play solitaire on the computer, I'm dating myself, but you know, play Words with Friends, or that's probably not even current anymore either. But they don't just sit in their office and wait for kids to come to them. They're very important and integral to the academic, career, and social emotional learning of every student in that building. Did you hear that? Every student in that building. They don't get to just pick and choose the ones that they want to work with. It's every student.
I think for me it would be resources and connections to resources to help my students. You know, at the middle school level, that's when we start. You know, in 8th grade, we start looking at 4-year plans and high school planning and post-secondary planning. And you know, if I could have a place where, or if someone would contact me and say, hey, we've got this program in wind energy, you know, that would be great. If they would look at the school counselors, maybe that point to distribute the information to the teachers, I think would be fantastic. As I'm going and looking at finding guest speakers or finding programs of study, I'm on just clicking through each university and looking to see what they have. If there was an easier way to get that, to access that information, I think that would be fantastic.
Thank you. All right, any questions from the field? And it is blinding up here, so I'm assuming that Jeff's team has a microphone. Oh, that's better. Okay, anybody have a question? In the back. All right, you'll have to yell. Oh, okay, just a second. We're going to run a mic. Wait, Angel, I think you took. Mike's been wanting to run off this stage since he got here.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Hi, my name is Robin Anderson. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce in Mason City. And school counselors are really the link between students and college and career. Your chambers of commerce and economic development organizations are a link between workforce and the educational preparation. And I would just encourage counselors, if you have an individual student who maybe has barriers to getting the education that they want, to get the kind of job that they want, contact your chamber. If you're wondering in your community who is hiring, what kind of preparation do they need, speakers to come and talk about a particular thing, or to come and talk to counselors, please contact your chambers, because this problem is huge, and if we're going to talk about, ratios of students to counselors, we could get really, wound up doing that. Let's just try to make incremental difference. If we're taking a few kids and turning them into good Iowa workers, I think that's a pretty good result we can all be proud of. So I would encourage you to use those resources in your communities.
Good question. Good comment. Is there another question? Right? Oh, always John Carver.
I don't need a mic.
You need a timer.
Okay, those of you who know me, I love you. Hey, the counselor's role. I'm really blessed in our district. We've got we're a 3A school district, and we've got 4 counselors. But to your point, people don't know what a counselor does. And one of the things that, as we talk about careers, my counselors, when I talk with them, we're 48% free and reduced lunch. And so you've got that social emotional issue, plus you've got that career piece, plus you've got the scheduling piece. And to the point that was made back here, perhaps maybe sharing the love. And in my world, we've connected with Northeast Iowa Community College. And so our plan going forward is to have one of their people become our career counselor person. And then they have a finger on what jobs are available and all that. The counselor that's in-house, we don't want them doing lunch duty. We want them available. But we've also got to explain to parents of high school kids their job isn't necessarily to find your kid scholarships. And so, the whole thing needs to be redefined, but you guys can't do it on your own. And to reach out to those community resources like DMAC or the community colleges, like the chambers, and maybe bring them in to do the career counseling piece. We're always looking for business, private-public partnerships. How cool would that be if Vermeer's HR person was working with Southeast Polk and providing that career counselor piece, which would free you up to do perhaps those other things. Because that social emotional piece, I guess the mental health piece is the one that I see is the greatest. And so I just offer that up, and my time is up.
Anybody want to respond or comment on that?
Well, if I could go back to the comment about the Chamber of Commerce, we actually at Gilbert, with our 7th graders, have a unit where it's an entrepreneurship unit, and we partner with our Chamber of Commerce, and the kids get in groups and they have to design a business, and there's a whole list of things involved, but we bring in out bankers from our community through the Ames Chamber of Commerce who they actually have to go and pitch and try to get a loan, and then we bring in other people from our community, and they're the investors, and then they have to try to get people to invest in their business or product or whatever they're making. So we do partner with our Chamber of Commerce a lot, at least the Ames Chamber of Commerce.
And I have a couple comments, if I can, sorry. Back to the chamber comment, yes, I've worked with a lot of school districts that have created partnerships between, Ankeny is one that comes to mind right away, that has a great partnership between their economic development and their chamber and their school in trying to get more education out about the great jobs that are in Ankeny, and I know that there's some other communities that are doing similar things following that same model. And a number of years ago, we partnered with DMAC and worked on a preparing today's students for tomorrow's careers, and tried to get teachers out into the workplace and counselors out into the workplace so that they could understand that. So I think there are a lot of those partnerships that are going on, but as with everything else, there needs to be more, obviously. And then I just want to address John's point. And I do agree that there are some folks that you can bring in from the community to help with that career piece. But I would also say, as a adjunct at Drake who teaches the career class, it isn't just, oh, here, these are the list of jobs that are available. It's taking a much larger scope of that. And there aren't a lot of folks that have that background in career guidance. There's career guidance and counseling. It's not just, here, let me match you up with some of the things that are going on. I think having somebody from Vermeer to come in and talk to Southeast Polk graduates, or to talk to Southeast Polk and say, here's some great things that are happening in your backyard. And here's some great ways that you can get jobs and stay right in this area. Because even if they don't then, if they leave, chances are good they're going to come back because they're going to realize how great Iowa really is. And so they've got that piece available to them. It isn't just, you know, bring somebody in and help them plan. There's lots of other pieces. And I'll never forget my very first counseling job interview. They said, last year, our seniors got X amount of dollars in scholarships. If you don't get that many dollars in scholarships for this next senior class, you're going to lose your job. Yeah.
I want to address too, just to piggyback off of what Sue was saying, sorry. As we're looking at, you've heard actually some examples about the new direction of counseling, and Dave's example of his partnership with DMAC and looking at the data is one of the things that we're trying to do more of across the profession, and being much more data-driven, looking at those post-secondary outcomes. And I think along those lines, it's also about being more intentional about our partnerships and absolutely bringing in folks to help our students access, create opportunities. Access is a big one where we need a lot of support in helping kids access different post-secondary opportunities, the workforce, all of that. And I think that is where we're looking at what's the purpose when we're pulling students from class or we're taking up time in our school day for this, that we're intentional about that and that we're targeting the right kids and we're really engaging them in that. But we can't do this alone. We have to have those partners, and I think counseling provides us a nice broad umbrella to fit all of those partners with so that we are all working towards the same outcomes for our students.
Right here.
Stacy Mitchell Goy, and I'm an induction coach for Des Moines Public Schools, and also a co-founder of a nonprofit that has an after-school program at Callahan Middle School. But in my past life, I was a middle school business teacher who helped with restructuring our middle school program and incorporating SRG, which is Standard Reference Grading. In that, I worked a lot with the counselor and understood her role, as well as putting some components in it that I thought was very necessary. So one of those things was career exploration, and then also high school planning to prepare our students for high school and start to look at career clusters, career pathways, and those type of things, and incorporated that in the business class along with some financial literacy. So on that level, we was able to work together, both the counselor and myself. So we use in-school time, in-class time, to allow those students to dig deeper and not just, and we use I Have a Plan, which I'm telling you, it's a great resource. It provides all those things, most of the things that Dave had said, as far as looking at projections for what's happening when you graduate in 2018 or 2020 or 2000, what have you. And it gives those projections and ideas of what's happening in Iowa and what's happening across the nation. Is that industry growing? Is it shrinking? What are the expectations for education and all of that, which is a great resource. I was able to work with the school counselor and be able to really, the two of us was able to dig deeper with the content of students really exploring that. What I've learned, it doesn't necessarily happen at the high school level. And I'm just really concerned about how you guys work with, in your regular structure, how you work with I Have a Plan, and I think now I'm hearing Naviance is a new program that we may be using for the district, for Des Moines Public Schools. How are you collaborating with your classroom teachers, your business teachers, or whether it's in a skinny, whether it's in a business class, but how are you collaborating with other people outside of just the counselors to use that in-class time to really allow those students to dig deeper and have them to do things like looking at college planning, looking more into the clusters, looking more into the career pathways, looking more into looking at career readiness, and also in using that for ACT preps, and those are all the things that I have a plan currently have. So what are you guys using, and how are you collaborating with other people in your building so that they can dig deeper?
Okay, Ryan?
Absolutely. Phenomenal question. And I can only speak specific to my building and what we are doing, but there are a lot of great conversations going on, not only with our classroom teachers, but most importantly, our administration. I'm going to be selfish here for a minute. My administrative team is phenomenal, and we're really a collaborative team. And they understand the value of what we do in our profession, and so now they are really listening to our need to want to get into the classes, work with our teachers, and work with our students, because we need that time. Again, we don't want to take away from instructional time, but we do need that time to help them dive deeper, just as what you said. So I would say, speaking in my building, we are having those conversations to the point where we're adjusting our master schedule, so that way we're building a skinny into our schedule next year, so that way we can go in and do that without taking time away from instruction. So our administration gets it, for lack of a better term, and I think starting next year and as we move forward and as our role continues to change within our building, you will really start to see a lot of movement on careers, STEM, etc.
Mike, I'd like you to take 1 minute on this since you're working with the 8th grade plan. How do you react to that?
Well, we use I Have a Plan right now, and you know, the status of that I think is in limbo, and I don't know, I haven't heard anything more about that, if that's going to continue or not. But I agree, I Have a Plan is great. For me, I get in with the 8th graders, and we do the 4-year planning, the post-secondary planning, and do all those things. And so I've not used any of the other tools, but I have used I Have a Plan.
All right, our time, I overheard the director, Jeff Weld, say that 3:50 is a hard stop. But before we leave, we want to give a round of applause for our counselors here today. But before I leave, the joy of having grandchildren. Have any of you seen the new Cinderella? Raise your hand if you have. If you have not, find a young kid and take them. That way you've got an excuse to be there. But my new mantra, in the movie, Cinderella's mother tells her just before she passes away, the motto for life should be, have courage, be kind. So I think that is an extremely good, and I'm telling my grandkids this all the time, have courage, be kind. And I think if we do more of that, particularly with our young people, as Iowans, we will continue to do everything Iowa does so well. So let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you. Nice job. Very nice job.
All right, how was that, guys? Good to mix it up a little bit, have a good panel discussion, so thank you guys so much for doing that. It is now my privilege to welcome back to the stage our co-chair, Mary Ann Dringa.
Well, it has been a great day, and it's been a busy day, and I think there's been a plethora of ideas going on today. So hopefully each of us are taking back some really key things. Years ago, I remember reading a book about a leader, a corporate leader over in Europe, and he said, there are 2 ways we can do 1,000% better. We can do one thing 1,000% better, or we can do 1,000 things all 1% better. And the point is, there's a lot of small things that maybe you picked up today, maybe a new person you met, a networking opportunity, an idea that you can take into your business or your classroom or your school district or your not-for-profit, and make your program, your impact on students that 1 to 2 to maybe 10% better. So hopefully it's been a great day of ideas, but some ideas that you can take back and internalize and really make a difference in what you do in this great opportunity we have in STEM and education in the state of Iowa. This is something I said a couple years ago when I had the opportunity to speak at this conference before I was fortunate enough to start working with the Lieutenant Governor. But I mentioned that lots of times when we go on vacation with some friends or even with our adult children, we've asked questions. You can ask a question and everybody's got to chime in. And one question often has been, who was the most influential in your life besides your family growing up? It will almost always be a teacher, a coach, a band or choir leader, a counselor, youth leader, someone like everyone sitting here. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who has and makes such a continued impact on all the young people in this state. So thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure now to give closing comments to Lieutenant Governor.
Oh, and thank you for staying. This is a lot of times we lose people at the end of the day, but I want to thank you for staying. That was another great session, and it has been an amazing day in STEM. Great breakouts, great sessions. I've seen networking, I've seen cards changing hands, and I've seen ideas being shared, and that's exactly what this is all about. When I came to capture some of the day, I heard STEM classroom spices it up, fun, engaging, collaboration, relevance to math and science, opportunities, hands-on. Who was enlightened by a teacher? Well, 66% of Kimmin employees said that it was a teacher that was responsible for them ending up in science. 2018, 72,000 new jobs in STEM. Change with the times, adapt, be flexible. Being rural isn't an excuse anymore. Counselors as the linchpin, access to all people, bring together, streamlining their role, a network of what the jobs look like today. Communication, collaboration, and working together, and that's what's making this initiative so successful. So thanks for being here, thanks for all you do. And in closing, I want to thank DMACC President Rob Denson for what we have as a generous gift of books for everyone that's here today. DMACC and Rob have been actively engaged in the STEM Council and in STEM Connector, which is a business-driven national aggregate of STEM as it applies to developing a STEM-skilled workforce. And we heard from the Patel 2.0 study how important that is for not only our youth, but for Iowa's economy and the nation's economy as a whole. And last April, Rob was selected to be the founding chair of STEM Connector's Higher Education Council, which is an association of 45 institutions of higher education. Iowa State, the University of Iowa, and Grinnell College are members, and the Higher Education Council released the book Advancing a Jobs-Driven Economy that features successful partnerships between business and higher education institutions. In the book, DMACC showcased its scholarship program with AccuMold of Ankeny. So everyone here can pick up a free book on your way out as you leave the STEM Summit. And again, I just want to say on behalf of Mary and I, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do to have STEM be or play a role in changing our young people's life. So here's the book. Thank you, Rob. I had my papers covered up, but this is the book. So thank you again for making it available. Great information in there, and thanks again for being here. Have a great day.
Thank you all for coming. We hope you, like she said, don't forget to grab a book and have safe travels home.